Hi, everyone. My name is Nadia Ait. Together with Joe, I founded Body Language Academy by Joe Navarro. I'm also the CEO of the company, and on behalf of our entire team, I want to welcome you all to this amazing webinar we're going to have today. It's so great to once again see people joining in from all across the globe. I myself am calling in from Copenhagen, Denmark. For those of you who would like to continue studying nonverbal communication, please have a look at our webpage, www.jnbodylanguageacademy.com. Here you can get free training to train those nonverbal communication skills with our demo version of the program. If you want to take the full Body Language Expert program, we also have a 30% discount for all of the webinar participants today. Here's a short video of students who have done the program.
Hello everybody, my name is Zulika. I'm a Human Resources Project Manager in a global company in France called Orange. I'm very proud because I just graduated the Body Language Academy Expert Program by Joe Navarro. I loved it all from the beginning to the end. This program is unique. The platform is really easy to use and you have great mentors who guide you through your learning journey. And the more important thing is that you can use your new skills and your knowledge straight away.
But I know you are very excited to see Joe Navarro, who is an ex-FBI special agent, a New York Times best-selling author. He's written 14 books, has a new one on the way. He's also a world-leading body language expert. And we will talk to him. He'll be here live in a very short time. Let me just first introduce you to today's host, David Stevens. He is our program manager and senior mentor at the Academy. David is joining us from Australia. Welcome, David.
Yeah, hi Nadia. Thank you for that introduction. It's great to see you, and it's great to see so many people joining us here online today. Today we've got a really important topic to look at, and that's around stress, anxiety, and body language. During COVID times, all of us have experienced some sort of change to our routine. A lot of us have been in isolation for extended periods of time, away from friends, family, work colleagues, and that certainly creates stress, that creates anxiety, that creates an environment where mental health issues are a real thing. Even now, as people are heading back to work or looking to head back to work, there's also a level of anxiety around that we've heard people talk about. And so I'm really looking forward to engaging with Joe today, talking a little bit about this issue and how we can use body language to help us as we navigate this environment. But first of all, I thought it'd be really good to hear from all of our participants, especially as we're looking at re-engaging with people and how people approach greetings, physical touches, hugs, handshakes. So let's have a quick look at a poll where you get to have your say. So let's do that now. Okay, so you should see the poll that's popped up in front of you. There's two questions. The first one is around how you would meet with someone in a work situation. The second one's around the social situation. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, especially now, you know, we're sort of 18 months after sort of a lot of the restrictions and social isolation come in. And as we end that poll, I might see if we've got Joe online. Joe, are you there? Hello, Joe.
How are you, David, down in Australia?
Very well, very well. How are things in Florida?
Warm today. Nice to see both of you. Yeah. Thank you, Nadia, for that warm introduction. I think this is. I'm glad you're taking this poll because it'll be interesting to see what people say. I think in the last probably 3 months, the number one question that's being asked is, what are the nonverbals going to be as we get back to work and so forth? So it'll be interesting to to see that, and then
let me share the results, Joe, and we can
yeah.
Give you a thing. Here we go. Share them. Popping up now. So yeah, looks like people are a bit more comfortable in social settings, perhaps with people that they know, but yeah, the work settings. And I make the observation that compared to a poll I took similar to this about sort of 2 years ago, it's a lot different. There's a lot less people willing to sort of engage. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that's happened is that when COVID first really started to affect us, from my vantage point, as I was looking at even people on the street in Florida, we had a limited lockdown. You could be outside, but as long as there was some distance, and it was really astonishing how we went from talking to each other at a very close distance to people who were just standing further and further apart, and that really took hold. And for a while there, I think that was a very subconscious thing. You know, this thing about here 6 feet or more, and so forth. But even still, I see people still distancing a little bit more than we used to. And I think it's in part it's cautionary, but I think in part it's a social thing where rightfully we want to take into account what is the other person's comfort in us getting close to them. I went to see my mom not too long ago, and as we hadn't hugged each other in a while, and the whole time I'm thinking, this wasn't even possible 8-9 months ago. Nobody had been vaccinated, and I mean, she's my mother, and I'm still thinking, is this action on my part going to cause her some harm in some way? And I think it's a sort of metaphor for when we go back to work. We may decide we want to shake hands. We may decide we want to hug, but I think there are some people that are going to still be a little hesitant, a little reluctant. And I think this is especially a time where now when we look at, people ask sometimes, well, what do you use body language for? Well, you use it for this. You use it to assess, I'm going to be meeting this person. What do I think are their needs, wants, and desires? If they don't want me to stand too close, how am I going to figure that out? If they don't want to shake hands or whatever it is, how do I determine that? And usually we use body language to determine those things. And that's where we can have this advantage that we can assess people very quickly, determine what is our course of action, and then of course contribute to psychological comfort. Because in part of socializing is creating this environment where everybody feels comfortable. And I think for the next while we're going to have to be a little bit more sensitive, whether it's around somebody that maybe is going through chemotherapy and really wants a bubble around them, or they have any number of illnesses out there where you need to be careful that you're not making them feel bad. And then of course the other big thing is I think there are a lot of mental health issues. I think everything that I've read, all the authorities I've talked to, the other day I was one of my favorite authors, Dr. Amy Cuddy. She and I were talking, and she's up in the Boston area, and she's talking about how there is definitely something that has affected a large portion of the population. Whether we call it melancholia or depression, or I think we would not be human if we could not say that we have reacted in some way to the lockdown, to the inability to travel, to changes in life. And that has affected all of us in some way. And I think we have to be mindful of that going forward.
Yeah, no, Absolutely, it's affecting everyone out there. And look, today we've got people from all around the world, and people will be in different circumstances depending on which country they're in, you know, where vaccinations are at, what some of the government directions are. And so we certainly encourage people to be mindful of that and respectful of other people's sort of needs. And as you say, it could be the pandemic, but someone might also be at high risk because of some other medical condition, and so they're particularly sensitive about this.
Well, and that, and one other thing is, you know, a lot of people have gotten sick, and there's been a lot of, you know, people have lost family members, and I think this is something that when we finally go back to a more robust work environment, these stories are going to come out as to, you know, what suffering and pain or travails people went through during COVID. And I think we'll be astonished at how many people around the world have been affected.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I wanted to say thank you for everyone that's already sent in questions. We've got, as usual, far more questions than we'll ever get through. So we're going to draw from some of those, as well as questions people are raising live during the webinar. So Nadia, what do we have a question to kick us off with?
We certainly do, and I agree, Joe, and we've got a great question here from Sarah in Australia, who's asking, if someone really wants to shake my hand, but how do I refuse to do this without causing offense?
That's a great question, and I would have to say that's probably one of the top 3 questions that I'm asked all the time. I think now, you know, the whole planet is aware that something's going on, so I don't think we should ever hesitate in you know, either restraining our own hands or reaching out with an elbow, or just front it and say, I would rather just wave or bow or whatever you want to do. But I think it's important to make other people feel safe and comfortable, as well as ourselves. And if you're not ready to shake hands, I'll be frank with you, I'm not ready to shake hands. I don't mind waving, and I've done a lot of you know, elbow and fist bumping, but personally, and I'm vaccinated, but I'd rather just wait a little bit, not because I think it'll affect me, but because I'm in contact with elderly people who may be affected by a courier. So just front it and say, I would rather just say, you know, wave and go forward from there.
Great. We covered Jennifer from Canada's question, unless you have anything to ask, who's asking about alternative greetings.
You know, greetings are cultural, and see what fits in. You know, in the American Midwest, there's less shaking hands, there's more waving. In New York, there's more hugging and so forth. In Miami, if you ever go through the Miami International Airport, you'll prior to COVID, you would literally see at shift change, you would see everybody just hugs, everybody gives each other an abrazo. So I think you just have to adapt to where you're at and what would be socially acceptable. We still have to be polite. You know, remember, this isn't often covered. Good manners are nonverbal communications, and so this is part of communicating that we're being respectful and mindful.
We also have Leo from New York City asking a question. When I walk into a room of strangers, where should I look to appear most confident?
Yeah, so that's a good question. You know, gaze behaviors are in part governed by cultural norms, social norms, society, and really personal favor. You know, what you personally favor. I mean, some people would prefer to look down and so forth. I think when it comes to showing confidence, I think in around the world, I think what we would say is the more confident you are, the more you're willing to engage in greater eye contact. So you enter a room and you don't hesitate to look and make eye contact with everyone is that's there. I'm actually people find this hard, but I'm actually kind of shy. And so when I come into a room, I like to go to a corner and just, I just want to be left there. And only after I get comfortable do I really engage in the gaze behavior. Now, what's interesting was when I was an FBI agent, my job demanded that I have control of that room. And so my gaze was very intense. It was dominant, and I didn't hesitate to look at everybody there. But I think this is one of those things where whether you're a public speaker or a manager or someone else, just taking the time to make that eye contact and sort of work the room by making sure you make eye contact with everybody will work in your favor.
And it is a balance, isn't it, Joe? I mean, you don't want to intimidate people, or maybe you do when you're playing your FBI role, but generally you want to be able to have that balance of being able to engage with people for an appropriate amount of time so they feel comfortable but don't feel like,
Yeah, that great point. There's a difference between staring and gazing. And you can intimidate people. I've intimidated people just with a stare. But that creates psychological discomfort, and we don't want that. We want to be able to engage people, look friendly, look about, but at the same time, not hesitate to look at someone that for whatever the reason we feel we shouldn't be looking at them. I will say this: culturally, we have to be mindful, because there are many cultures, for instance, Japan in particular, where if you are of lower status or if you're younger, you don't have the same rights and privileges as someone who is older. Or is a CEO or something like that. They have a greater right to look around. You have lesser rights. So culture must be considered, but good question.
Yeah. And Nadia, do we have any live questions that we could?
We got Juanca asking, Joe, do you think that once COVID is over, will we get back to our old ways?
Yes, we did. People forget we had a pandemic in 1918 that killed 40 million people, and within a short period of time, we were right back to normal. Look, our species, we are humans, but our hominin past. Our primate past ensures that we will always have a need to touch. I have endless collections of photographs of people who flock to the windows of nursing care homes to put their hands up against the window to say hello to their parents, or people hugging each other through plastic, shower curtains, any number of things. We humans have to touch. We literally, from the time we're born, we literally cannot survive. If a premature child is born, there is a nurse assigned to just touch that child. That's how important touch is. And so we seek it, we want it, whether it's hugs with family or just getting a good massage. Don't forget, every time humans touch, there's this cascade of chemicals that's released that bonds us. The oxytocin is released. I mean, it's quite exquisite. we evolved this system of self-reward that when we touch, even if it's just to massage ourselves or someone else, that someone would be rewarded for that. And so, yes, to answer the question, we will be right back to it. How fast? We shall see. That's the interesting question.
Excellent. All right.
Yes, that's great news for many people, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's not going away anywhere anytime soon. All right, we might move along to the next section, and thanks for all the questions that are coming in. And this is around sort of behaviors, pacifying behaviors, those sort of behaviors that we use to help calm ourselves and in stressful situations. So I'm going to run a short poll, and I'll put it up on the screen now. Poll. And the question is, looking at, and there's a very short list here. There's an endless amount of behaviors that we could put up. We've just chosen a few of them. So maybe if you choose your, top 3 or 4 that you might have experienced in yourself when you get stressed, what sort of things do you do? Is it sweaty palms? Are you wiping them on your trouser legs? Do you bite your nails? Do you play with your hair or your face? Do you do different things? We'd love to see what people out there do to help calm themselves down in stressful situations.
Or we do them all.
Or we do them all.
It's interesting. A lot of times students wonder, how is it that the teacher knows to pick on me when I'm so ill prepared? And they don't realize that it's because they're the ones that are doing all these pacifying behaviors that let the teacher know, I didn't read, I didn't study, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, it's.
All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds. Put in there.
While we're waiting for that, keep as a reminder, when we talk about pacifiers are not optional. Pacifiers are a requirement. Your brain needs to be pacified at all times. Now, we do it in a variety of ways. When we are, when we're still in the uterus, we now know that babies will suck their thumbs. Even elephant babies suck their own trunk. And it's an interesting concept that the brain has to go outside of itself, right? Because you could sort of talk yourself out of it, but we actually have to go outside and say to the hand, hey, if you're not doing anything, how about playing with the ear and soothe me? How about massaging your hands and calm me down? How about stroking the face as you think? The brain requires this of us. Now, what's interesting is even when we're enjoying a quiet moment, we do this. We're reading a good book or something, but we certainly need it even more when we're under stress. So to get back to that balance point where we go from a very stressful situation back to what's called homeostasis, we actually have to engage these behaviors to calm them down. Now, if we're healthy, we do it in a healthy way. The worst thing you can do, of course, is eat a lot, drink a lot, or smoke a lot, which are also pacifiers. But so let's see what the poll says.
Yeah, I'll just put up the results. All right, as you can see there, and make sure you scan down. In fact, the biggest one is the tensing of muscles, probably followed by touching face or hair, the ability to think straight. Any surprises there, Joe?
No, not really. In fact, one of the interesting things that we know about pacifiers is how often we touch our faces to achieve this calming. It starts in utero with thumb sucking, and then we continue throughout life with literally a pacifier, biting nails, putting things in our mouths. I used to work with a guy who chewed his pencils, and that was bad enough, but he kept them. it's like he was like one of those critters out there that eats wood. As throw those things away. But when he was under stress, he had to have something in his mouth, and it was chomping on it. Think about, for instance, when at night when we grind our teeth, that we're pacifying. I think one of the reasons, if not the principal reason, there's a lot of face touching is, and not to get too technical, but we've got a very sophisticated audience. The nerves that come out of our head and secrete themselves into our face, they're not that far from the brain. They react very quickly. And so I think because of that proximity, right? So if you were to massage your foot, that would take a little longer, but the fact that that nerve is so close explains why, we touch the tip of our, you'll see people under stress testifying, touching the tip of their nose. It has nothing to do with deception. It has to do with the fact that the fifth cranial nerve comes right to here. And so they're stimulating that to calm themselves down as well as other parts of the face. So a lot of times when we look at why we do certain behaviors, one of the things that we look at, and certainly I look at, is what is the proximity to the brain? Because these short nerves often indicate why we tend to do so much with our face, including touching the ears, touching the nose, pinching the bridge of the nose and other things. And so that's why we do it.
Yeah, no, that's great, Joe. And I'm sure as we're talking about touching the face, I'm sure a lot of people out there will have found themselves sort of almost subconsciously scratching their nose or doing some of those behaviors. It's a bit like yawning sometimes when we talk about them. People start to...
Yeah, well, let's not forget mirror neurons. We can create a contagion by doing that. But I think sometimes especially there's a lot of literature out there. I remember when I came into law enforcement in the 70s, and people were saying, well, if they touch their nose, they're lying. No, they're not. They may be, but that's not indicative of lying. They may be touching their nose because when we're under any kind of stress, including just being looked at, we're going to want to touch our nose, which tends to soothe us. So, it doesn't surprise me about the facial touching. I find it interesting that most people didn't, we don't even think about the feet. And yet we do a lot of pacifying with our feet. We curl our toes. We put one foot on top of the other. We bring our legs together. We will, shuffle our feet. We will have what's called the ankle quiver. When we're really stressed, the ankle will quiver back and forth repeatedly. We tend to think of pacifiers as being up here, but that would be wrong. We pacify throughout the body.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we've asked people what they've seen in themselves, but of course we might get a different set of things if we asked others what they observed in people. So often we're not even aware of what the behaviors we're demonstrating either.
Exactly. I mean, think about people, including myself. I tend to bounce my leg when it's like, let's move things along, and my leg is bouncing. So any repetitive behavior is a pacifier, whether you're playing with your hair or you're bouncing your leg. And yet most of us focus up here, right? And we forget the rest of the body. Like you see somebody repeatedly in a job interview is pulling up on their socks. Well, their socks aren't falling. They're ventilating their socks. They're pacifying. the fact that they've done it 3 times in the last 8 minutes, it's a clue that somehow they're being stressed out, because normally we don't pull our socks up that often. So we have to we have to sort of expand our view and say we will use the whole body to pacify. The question is, what has this person selected to do that?
Yeah, it's a great point. Nadia, what have we got from participants?
We've got another great question from Australia, and this is Stephanie asking about your FBI time. During your time with the FBI, what signs of stress did you observe, Joe, with the people you interviewed?
Yeah, how many hours do we have? Because anytime the FBI knocks on your door, we're not there to have a party. It's it's stressful, even when we're just asking for people's cooperation of their witnesses. I think the most common thing, the first thing you always see is the freeze response. They're sort of shocked. What is the FBI doing here? They're very stoic. They stand very still. It was always interesting to me how it's channeled even to the children, where a mother or a father comes to the door and the children are standing there, and you're flashing your credentials, and they all freeze. I mean, the whole family freezes, which harks back to evolution, where we had to freeze when everybody else froze, because it was only important that the first person see the lion in the distance. When that person froze, then everybody froze. He or she didn't have to turn around and says, "Hey gang, lion up ahead, let's," you freeze, everybody freezes. And so it was interesting really to see even very small children immediately, without a lot of assessment, mirroring the behavior of the parents and becoming stoic. The other things that I looked for, everybody is very familiar with the wringing of the hands and stuff like that. But one of the things that I would notice is this little area under the nose is called the philtrum, and these are your philtral columns. Is that how often we would be talking about any number of subjects, but moisture would collect here within the philtrum, and you wouldn't see it anywhere else on the body. And yet this was telling us this person is under stress. Now, we accept that for the first 20 or 30 minutes, but after a while, hopefully the person has calmed down. And so when it didn't stop, then we would wonder, does this person have guilty knowledge, and so forth, and we would explore it further. I mentioned the playing with the socks. I have literally had suspects take their shoes off because what you forget that the feet are very vascular. And so they just would heat up. And so they would ventilate by taking their shoe off and putting it back on. And I've had them look at me and say, "I'm not sure why I did that." And I'm going, "I don't know why you did that." Actually, I do. And they're doing ventilating behaviors. Or one that you don't see with men, because but you see with women, is there'll be repeated movement of the hair away from the neck. The neck under stress becomes very warm, and so they'll flick their hair away to ventilate this area. Men tend to remove their hat or run their fingers through their hair to ventilate. So you see everything as an FBI agent, including fainting. I had 2 incidents where when the minute you said you're under arrest, and they just they just collapse. So, you know, we don't forget there's the freeze response, but we rarely talk about the other. So there's freeze, flight, fight, but there's one in between, and that's the freeze, faint, flight, fight, and that has been useful in many occasions. You often hear about somebody that's attacked by a bear and they play dead. That's part of the faint response. Anyway, good question, but I think I pretty much seen my fill. Yeah.
Got a follow-up question here from Julia in London. How will people who are anxious or stressed try to hide or mask their feelings?
Yeah. Well, there's all sorts of ways that people try to hide when they're under stress. You'll see people wiping their hands on their trousers. You'll see people, like rotating their thumb inside their other hand, doing all sorts of things. I think the ones that we need to look out, first of all, let me just say this. I think if it's a stressful situation, I think you should have no problem in saying, this is stressful and I'm nervous. I do it all the time. I gave a TED talk in Manchester, a TEDx talk in Manchester right before the COVID. And I said, I do this for a living, but I'm nervous. And I think you should just front it and not worry about it, because most of the time nobody wants you to fail. But the behaviors that I look for when it comes to pacifying is when people are trying to hide them. And they do it by, for instance, normally if I'm thinking of something, I might touch my face and scratch my face like that. But when they pretend like this isn't happening, so they do it really slow. You'll see poker players do this. When they're under high stress, they know that there's all sorts of eyes on them. So instead of just touching their face, they'll sit there and just slow it down really slow. Anytime people try to hide that they're pacifying, I take a look at. The other one is the ones that we do within the mouth. And you'll see people they'll stick their tongue into their cheek and they'll go like this. And they're really hiding the fact that they're pacifying. They'll do these little gestures, tongue into the cheek. The tongue is obviously very rich in nerves, and they're pretending like everything is okay, like whistling while you're walking through a dark alley and so forth. So that's what I look for is when they're trying to hide the pacifier, not that they're doing it. Yeah, good question.
What gestures or postures can reduce anxiety? Reed from South Africa is asking.
Well, interestingly enough, there's a lot of things that we can do. One of them, which goes actually with the last question, but is also applicable to this one, is rotating your neck. I've seen this so many, not hundreds of times, thousands of times in settings where the person will engage in this inordinate amount of stretching of the neck. That is a pacifier, and it's a very useful one to just stretch your neck before you go out and speak or do something that can help you. Obviously you want to have a presence, but you can also have what we call a pre-presence, and that is by this is taking on some of the work or following on some of the work by Dr. Amy Cuddy. And that is, you find a solid wall and do very expansive gestures. So you spread your arms and you push into that wall with all your strength. And I find that is very helpful into sort of releasing your mindset and your chemistry. I find it stretches me. I find that it gets the blood flowing. I feel more confident in doing those things. And that's something that you can do right before you go on a stage or right before you go into an office. There's always a bathroom you can go into and do that thing. I was in a bathroom one day doing that, right? I was already wired up, but I'm doing the stretch thing, and somebody came in and said, "Isn't that a little late for now?" It's like, it's never too late. But that's what I do to get mentally like a runner stretching right before they take the blocks. Easy to do, fun to do, and you'll never know who comes up and talks to you. So yeah.
And that ties in well with the last survey, where a lot of people talked about the tensing up of muscles as a result of anxiety and stress. So stretching is a way of directly trying to address that in those.
That's a great point, David. It really does do that. I think people spend a lot of time saying, "Oh, I'm nervous, I'm anxious." And they're pacing back and forth, and that doesn't do enough. I think just, what I call take on that wall and just push it like you're trying to hold up the side of a building and release all that tension. And you'll find you'll walk out with greater confidence. Anyway, that's what I like to do.
And then what can you do to calm other people down in high stress situations?
Yeah. And I love that question because, in fact, this is something that I talk about in my new book, which is what is the relationship of a leader to others. And one of the responsibilities of a leader is not to give grand ideas, is to do exactly what you're talking about, Nadia, which is, how do I calm other people down? How do I attenuate fears? And there are really good ways, and one of them is that to remember that all eyes are on you, and so how you present, right? Do you come out and are you running back and forth? Are your hands jittery? Are you looking about? Are you biting your lip and so forth? Or are you considering what is, from a sort of theatrical standpoint, what is needed now? What is needed now is someone who is calm, someone who is thinking through this and not being emotional. And, sometimes we have to act that part, which means, okay, I'm in charge of this mess. I'm going to come out here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cathartic exhale. People will see that. And as any emergency room doctor will tell you, the minute the doctor does that, everybody else begins to settle down. We invariably will mirror what the chief person, the senior person, will do. And so others will exhale. Just as David said, if we touch our nose, other people may do it. We do a cathartic exhale, we calm ourselves down, we calm other people down, and then we force ourselves to talk in a lower voice and give very precise, without sentences or statements, without equivocation. So you can have no equivocation. There is no hesitation. Hesitation kills. So it's, let's do this. You in the blue suit, I need for you to go get some water. I need for you to hold the legs up and keep the legs up while we're tending to this person. And, and it's a calm voice. And in that calmness, others will respond. The worst thing you can do is act hysterical, and that just aggravates things. And keep the tone of voice low, because when we're under stress, our voice tends to go higher. And I tell the story of the first time we were rehearsing making arrests. And they said, okay, Joe, now you make the arrest. And I was so nervous, and my voice, I'm sure it sounded like, stop, you're under arrest, really high. You just can't do that. I mean, not even the dogs will respect you if you're talking that high. You really have to say, this is my role. I need to perform this this way, and the Lord voice will do it. Yeah.
That's great. Now, Nadia, I'm sure we've got a couple of live questions we can ask Joe, but just before you do, Joe, you mentioned your new book coming out. What's that called, and when will that be?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning. I literally just got it 3 days ago. Be Exceptional comes out June 29th. You can pre-order it, bookstore, Amazon, everybody's got it, or my website, joenavarro.net. And it's people ask me, well, what's it about? Once you master nonverbals, now what do you do with it? And that's what it's about. It answers the question. Nobody wants, if you ask the public who wants to be average, nobody wants to be average. Okay. Who wants to be exceptional? Everybody raises their hand and say, well, now how do you do that? How do you, because to be exceptional, you have to do exceptional things. And that's what the book is about. So thanks for mentioning. So what other questions do we have? Because I saw a couple of them earlier, and they were, I thought they were pretty good.
We got someone asking here on the live feed who's very nervous in job situations. What do you think are the most important things to keep in mind about one's own body language during job interviews?
Yeah, once again, I think this is a question that I've heard from recent college graduates, and I've heard it from people transferring from mid-career. My philosophy is everybody's been in this situation, just don't hide it. Most of us aren't world-class actors, so don't hide it. Just say, I'm really nervous, and I'm sure that the people that will be there interviewing you will understand, because nobody likes to be interviewed, even in a job setting. So just front it, say, I'm nervous, exhale. And I'm sure the people there will say, we understand completely. And I think this is one of those things that causes a lot of anxiety, because I think in the past, people have tried to get you to hide it. Don't do that. Just front it, and everybody will understand. We've all been through it.
Here's Alexandra asking, how do you recommend that we replace a negative self-soothing behavior, such as nail biting, that we obviously can't do in a job interview?
Yeah, good question. I just did a pacifier. So this little area of the mouth is called the commissures, and when we're under stress or when saliva builds up, we have a tendency to touch the commissures of the mouth. It calms us down. Not that I'm nervous. It's just when we're talking a lot, our mouth dries up. Ask the question again. Sorry.
So what do we do instead of biting on nails?
Yeah, sorry. Right. So the reason I came to this is, you'll see some people when they're under stress that they'll repeatedly touch the corners of their mouth. What happens is they touch it so much they become ulcerated. Right. And so you'll see this reddening of this area, or you have some people that bite their nails so often that they bleed or they get infected and so forth. Obviously, we do these behaviors because, once again, repetitive behaviors that are tactile are self-soothing, but they can become addictive in a way and they can become pathological. They can actually harm us, like pulling our hair and other things. And for years, people are, clinicians have said, well, divert that with something else. So when you feel you're going to, for instance, bite your nails, take you take a rubber band and you put it around your wrist, and every time you find yourself biting your nails, you snap the rubber band. And kind of primitive, but it actually works. I had a neighbor that did that, and it helped her. I think one of the things you can do is recognize that, okay, this isn't healthy. This constant touching of the mouth is just, first of all, your hands may be dirty, so don't do that. And then say, well, what am I going to replace it with? Because my brain is going to require it. And some people, will take an object, a little piece of tin or something, and they will hold it in their hands and just rub it, and transfer that there. They put their hands behind their back, and there are ways to transfer it. I think the worst thing you can do is keep doing it, because it can become obsessive compulsive. I mean, I had to escort an individual out of a bathroom as a police officer before I came into the FBI, who was washing his hands so much compulsively that his hands were bleeding, and they just cannot control this. So we had to get him some help, and that can affect all of us, especially if we're under stress. Yeah.
I have another great question I have to ask you, because you are great at this, Joe. How can you reduce stress levels in children?
Yeah, that's the one for that's the $1 million question. We know that children are under tremendous amount of stress because there is so much stimuli out there. There are so many demands on them from school, from homework, from what other children are doing, social media, and everything else. I think the healthiest things that we can do is, from a very early age, structure a day, create the scaffolding so that the child knows that at least once a day they're going to be outside playing or exercising, or engaging in, I've seen children engage, doing yoga or swimming or any number of things, so that this becomes part of their life, that somewhere along the day, there will be a time to where they're not thinking of anything else but just standing down. I think if we don't do that, it's very easy to have, I know clinicians don't like to use the term neurosis, but I think one can become very sort of neurotic in that we want to, we can connect with each other so quickly that this fear of missing out, this FOMO, what are you doing? Oh, you're going to the boat, you're doing this. And so that creates a lot of stress. Getting there on time, not being late, doing X amount of work, being at the top of the class. When we look at cultures, for instance, that do a lot of testing, stress is just out of control with some of these children. So I think there needs to be, I see parents taking their children to, ballet, karate, cello lessons sometimes, and, any number of things. And my question is, yeah, that's great, but where in the architecture of this that you've created is this time when they can relax? Or do you seriously expect them to go from this high level of activity to then say, okay, it's 8 o'clock, you need to be in bed? Humans are not faucets. We're not switches. You cannot switch. There has to be a transition period, and there has to be a period when we stand down, when we can relax, and that needs to be built into it. The other thing is we ourselves need to do those things so that they can mirror us. They can model us and say, you know, mom and dad, they take time to not be online, to converse. We converse, you know, very quietly, and that has a soothing effect, and hopefully it'll deal with the neurotic anxiety of today.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe, you make a great point there. It's just as important for, as much as we talk about children doing this, it's just as important for us, for adults, for everybody else to have those periods of downtime where we can actually sort of refresh and sort of re-engage. We can't be all at that peak performance level all the time, because that's what leads to stress and anxiety and sort of clinical issues.
It leads later on in life to hypertension, to this restlessness, to this inability to just relax. And so the easiest things that we turn then to are drugs and alcohol and other things to attenuate us, when in fact for tens of thousands of years, at least for 700,000 years, our species had a very routine day. We knew our environment. We weren't constantly crashing with many cultures, many things that were new to us. It was, you know, there's that tree again. It was there yesterday. And yeah, the lions come by here every once in a while, but then they go away. The harmony that we had with nature is gone. You know, you can't be harmonious with a device that's speaking to you at 2 gigahertz. We just can't keep up, and so we become anxious and so forth. So we have to, for the benefit of ourselves and children, is work that into the program. And you know, when I hear, yeah, you know, my daughter does this and this and this and this, and great. And then my question, which I never say out loud, but I'm asking it, is when's her downtime? When is her transition time, and when is her, you know, where she literally stands down? And I suspect a lot of parents have difficulty answering that.
Well, I think we're almost out of time. Perhaps one quick final question. I did, maybe if you got one there, Nadia, we can tackle
Got one here. It's about the COVID time. So with a mask, how can you detect stress on the face?
Yeah, you know, we talked about that a while ago, and that's still one of the top 3 questions that I get. Well, first of all, congratulations. Now you realize how important understanding body language is. And if for no other reason, you know, that may be one of the best reasons to take the course, is so that you can learn to read body language, but not just in one area. So we look at the eyes, we look for the squinting. Usually you can see the squinting eyes, the narrowing of the ocular socket. We look for the furrowing of the glabella, or the furrowing of the forehead, and of course any touching of the face. These all contribute to understanding. I feel for a lot of people who just have never taken the time to really study body language, and they were just sort of perplexed when people starting masks and say, well, I can't, you know, I can't really tell what they're feeling, or, you know, are they happy or upset? And, you know, if you had been studying this, you would realize that from, you know, the head on down, that there are a lot of things that we can look for that communicate effectively. So I know we're near the top of the hour, so I want to thank everybody for this opportunity. I wish we had time for the all the questions that we got, but I think these were great questions. I think going forward, you know, obviously, if you're here and you're listening to this, it's because you care. I think we need to be mindful of each other, and we need to be mindful that this probably has been the most stressful thing that we as a collective, as a group, as a society has had probably since the global wars, and that we're still suffering a little bit from it, and we have to be mindful of what other people have gone through, and that they may not quite be there yet, and our job is to help them. So thank you for this great opportunity, and David and Nadia, thank you for organizing this, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Joe. And just a reminder to people, if you are sort of, struggling because of stress and anxiety, please reach out to friends and family or to other support mechanisms that are out there, because it's important that you do get the help that we all need at times. And once again, thank you for being a part of this morning. I encourage people, if you're really interested in body language and looking at this in more depth, then please have a look at the expert program that Joe runs. That's what we've sort of talked about a little bit today, and you can find out more information about that at our website, which is jnbodylanguageacademy.com. We've currently got a 30% spring special, so if you're interested in the program, you can check it out. You can do the demo, which will give you an idea of what the program's about, and you can get a discount for the next week on the program. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us from around the world. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing everybody either on the program or next time. So thanks everyone once again.